What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Arkansas coming off of a 58-25 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs in Starkville last weekend. We've got some things to talk about with that game. We'll recap some of the stuff, talk about some other stuff going on, and, of course, we're going to look ahead to this weekend's game in Fayetteville at 11 o'clock against the Ole Miss Rebels, number 19 ranked Ole Miss Rebels. And we're going to bring Connor Goodson in, talk a little bit about some of the things going on with football and basketball as well. We'll get maybe a little bit of a recap of against Kansas and look ahead to the TCU exhibition on Friday. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. So many ways to watch and listen to the show. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, X, and now we're on Instagram. So a lot of different ways to watch the show. And if you want to listen, then be sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. HawgSports.com. $1 right now for your first month at Hawg Sports. You can sign up today. 2 options to sign up: 30% off for the annual subscription, or you can sign up and get the first month for $1. The thing I like about the dollar deal is you can try it out for $1. So it's hardly anything to you. You get it for a full month. And when you decide you like it, because that's how we get you in for $1, and then we get you paying full price. But when you decide you like it and you want to go up to the $9.95 a month, you're also eligible for free Paramount Plus, like as long as you're subscribed. It's not like just a year. Like if you're subscribed to, so we're in the Paramount Global ecosystem. So once you're subscribed to Hawg Sports, you're going to get Paramount Plus for as long as you're subscribed. So that's $100 basically a year service that you get absolutely free. So pretty sweet deal to sign up for. HawgSports.com. Check us out. All right. I don't like the color on that, but that's the color on my banner. It's gray. It's supposed to be black. All right. So the big news today, I caught wind of this yesterday. But obviously letting Sam Pittman verify it. I actually asked Sam about personnel stuff going on with the program, and he kind of, I don't know, he didn't answer this directly. And then he just talked about some injuries, and I said, so that's it? And he says, yeah, as far as injuries, and then it's on to somebody else's question. And eventually the question was asked about Var'Keyes Gums, but Ty Washington also no longer with the team. So Arkansas down 2 players, Var'Keyes Gums and Ty Washington, both suspended permanently. I guess that's expelled. I don't know how you would put it, but both those players are gone from the team now. 2 tight ends that look like at one point that they would be like go-to guys right behind Luke Haz. I mean, during spring, well, we know what Ty Washington did last year when Luke Haz went down. He came in, he had 5 catches on like the first drive against Ole Miss. A couple of weeks later, when they had like open auditions, he ended up with 7 catches and a touchdown in that game. Then he dislocated his shoulder, required surgery, causing him to miss spring football. And that's when Var'Keyes Gums really took off. I mean, we thought Var'Keyes might be the other tight end next to Luke Haz when they do a lot of 2 tight end sets, which they do a lot of. But Var'Keyes really fell off when Ty Washington came back, and it then became apparent, okay, Ty Washington. And then you had Andreas Poska, the transfer from Eastern Michigan, originally from Denmark, who was viewed as kind of more of a traditional blocking tight end, goes about 6'6" or something, 260 pounds. Both of those guys, Luke Haz and Andreas Poska, had really big games. Each of them had 2 touchdowns in the game. So especially for Poska, who I don't believe had caught a pass before that. Haz, I think, is 3rd leading receiver on the team right now, or tied for 3rd, but obviously a weapon for him. So down 2 tight ends. That leaves, I believe, those 2 guys, Poska, Haz, and Shamar Easter, as the only scholarship tight ends right now. Maddox Lassiter is a guy that's played a good bit, a walk-on who is their fullback when they go to an I form. So interesting development there. And the term, I was originally told that they had left the team. The term from Sam Pittman was they were suspended without the possibility to return, and didn't elaborate. I'd heard some things on why. Now, Gums popped up. Gums was not on the availability report Wednesday when they have to release the availability report. Friday, I remember we're at the Kansas basketball game, and Friday, Gums is on there and just listed as out. You don't really see that very often unless a player gets hurt in practice or something like that, I guess would be the only instance. But so that raised some eyebrows on that. And then with Washington, I heard some reasons why he left the team, but I'm not going to discuss them because it's just rumor. I don't have it confirmed through another source, but it is interesting. Taylon Green and Braylon Russell earn weekly SEC honors. Taylon Green is the SEC Offensive Player of the Week, well-deserved. And Braylon Russell is the SEC Co-Freshman of the Week. Taylon was 23 of 30 passing for 314 yards with 5 touchdowns and had 79 yards and a touchdown on the ground, which is pretty rare company. I believe Ryan Mallett's the only other guy at Arkansas who did 5 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown rushing at Arkansas in a season. He did have an interception, which came off the tip ball in the second half. And then Braylon had 175 rushing yards. I think it was 16 carries. The first Arkansas freshman to rush for 175 yards or more in a game since Darren McFadden did 187 on South. Darren McFadden messed up South Carolina plenty of times, but this is the first time, 187 against South Carolina in 2005. He had 100 yards, I think, on his 15th or 16th, I think his 16th carry, and then his 17th went for that 75-yard run. Looked like I thought it initially hurt his hamstring, but it looks like it was a cramp. So congratulations to those 2 players. We got to see a lot of Braylon Russell and, get a good look. Obviously, Mississippi State's defensive line was depleted, and they've got some issues on defense, obviously. They rank last in every category, every major category, and Arkansas took advantage. But you got a good look at Braylon Russell and maybe what the future can hold. On the offensive line, Patrick Kudus got the start at left guard over Keyshawn Blackstock. Probably played a little bit more, but both of them played. The plan moving forward, Sam Pittman didn't say this exactly, but they are going to redshirt Kudus. And when Kudus said he wanted to redshirt, Sam said, well, we'll redshirt you, but we don't want to redshirt you for somebody else, So, but he's like, no, I'll hog. I'm not going anywhere. And why would you? You're going to be a starter in the SEC at Arkansas. But Kudus, Pittman didn't say this, but Kudus is not going to play the Louisiana Tech game. That's the only way you can justify playing him against Mississippi State, and he's going to play this week against Ole Miss. Then you get the bye week, and then you play him against Texas. You sit him against Louisiana Tech. You play him against Missouri. You beat Louisiana Tech or any of those other teams or combinations. You go to a bowl game. You can play him in a bowl game without it impacting. It's the 4-game redshirt rule. But it was amended, I think, last year or year before. I think year before. It was amended where you can play a guy in a bowl game also. It was obviously amended a year before. It actually happened with Tyrus Washington because Tyrus Washington was going to redshirt, and he had played 4 games and he wanted to redshirt, and then they played him in the bowl game because they were able to, and he had a long catch in that game. So Patrick Kudus, started that game. He's played in 1 game this year. Pretty wild with that back. He was hurt on the 2nd day of fall camp. Okay, so 58-25 final. We talked about Taylon Green stats. We talked about Braylon Russell stats. I guess the question would be Jaquindon Jackson. Is he available this week? He's got an ankle. They could use him. Now, DeBinion ran hard. DeBinion made up for a lot, in people's mind. Now, you don't make up for that fumble. That was obviously very disappointing. It put Arkansas in an awful situation, but I'm just talking like made up for how a lot of people thought about DeBinion and what kind of back he could be with the way he ran Saturday. I thought he ran extremely hard. And again, you're running against a defense that is depleted and just not very good overall. But 11 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. Pretty strong. It's wild to me that Braylon Russell ran 16 times. So 15 carry was 100 yards, put him at 100 yards, and the next one put him at 175. So, but Braylon had 16 carries for 175 yards in a game where Arkansas scored 58 points, and he didn't score a single touchdown, and he's the goal line back. I mean, pretty wild. So, all right. Let's get to now some questions. It wasn't obviously sunshine and rainbows totally. No, the offense was. Putting up 58 points is pretty impressive. Of course, the defense stepped up and gave them some turnovers, but the defense also allowed a lot of yards to Mississippi State. They had 471 yards allowed. I would contend that about 50 of those shouldn't have existed. Sam Pittman didn't say it in the press conference today, but Hudson Clark was held in the on that first touchdown that Mississippi State scored on the screen pass. I mean, if you're a referee, you got to be asking, like, is there a reason this was so blown so open, Yeah, they were holding. But defense overall didn't play extraordinarily well I mean, now Mississippi State does some good things on offense. It's not like they're inept on offense. They're undisciplined because there's a lot of newness going on. I think we saw that. I've never seen so many plays at the goal line go against the team, but they were all correct. I mean, they were all the correct call. Even the guy throwing the ball up in the air, that was just, that was foolish. I mean, you can't do stuff like that. I guess he thought he scored and it wouldn't matter, just be assessed on the kickoff. But you can't do that stuff even if you think it's assessed on the kickoff. That just screams undisciplined team. It's a bad look for your coach, for yourself, and for the team as a whole. Not quite as bad as a look as a 1-7 record, but still not a good look. Taylor Green right now is 151 at 249 passing for 2,056 yards at 60.6%. 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 16 times. That's way under what they were last year, but it's a decent number of sacks. He has a 139 efficiency rating. That's better than KJ Jefferson had last year, but it's not better than KJ Jefferson's best years. And a lot of that's just through, the period where he had a bit of a dip with that UAB game, with the Auburn game, Texas A&M. He has picked it up since Tennessee. Even against LSU, they only scored 10 points, but he picked it up a good bit. Like his completion percentage, his confidence in the pocket, all that stuff has improved. Jaquindon Jackson has 104 carries for 592 yards. It's a 5.7 average and 10 touchdowns. Talon has 395 yards on 95 carries and 5 touchdowns, and Braylon Russell has 43 carries for 302 yards and 2 touchdowns right now. DeBenja's at 20 for 138 and a touchdown. So just a few numbers. Andrew Armstrong right now, he's second in the SEC and receiving yards, 49 catch. I think it might just be receptions. 49 receptions for 722 yards. Also didn't play that UAPB game, which was a stat patter, but only 1 touchdown. Satania has 27 for 383. Tesla has 13 for 270. Defense, Xavier Sori has 60 total tackles, including 24 solos, 1 sack, 1 interception. He's the leading tackler for Arkansas. Daneko Slaughter is number 2. Landon Jackson has 3.5 sacks, and TJ Metcalf has 3 interceptions. That's kind of the an overall look at the statistics right now. Ole Miss has played. Now, Ole Miss had one of those schedules. We talked about Missouri's schedule a lot and how favorable it was, and now we're seeing, and Missouri's obviously Cook is banged up, and that's going to play a role. But Missouri got beat like 34-0 against Alabama last weekend. But Missouri's schedule set up in a way that's going to keep them, ranked and just set up very favorable with the number of home games. Ole Miss was kind of like this too, because Ole Miss played. Ole Miss, everybody's like, oh, they're top 4 team in the country. No, not quite. Beat Furman 76-0 in their opener in Oxford. Beat Middle Tennessee State the next week in Oxford 52-3. Their big SEC or non-conference road game, their big Power 4 road game was Wake Forest, played in Winston-Salem. They beat them 40-6. Then they played Georgia Southern in Oxford 52-13, and then they blew it against Kentucky. Kentucky, I guess, I don't know that they thought that they were better than they are or what, but they shouldn't have lost this game. They lost 20-17 in Oxford against Kentucky. That was a big disappointment for them. So that kind of ruined their chance to start off 5-0 and, everybody's darling and all that stuff. And then they went to Columbia the next week, got things straightened out. Columbia, which is all over the map. I mean, they're just up and down. South Carolina. They're just up and down, up and down. 27-3 win over South Carolina. Then they had a battle against LSU in overtime. A lot of you probably watched that because Arkansas played LSU next. 29-26 loss in Baton Rouge in overtime. And then last week they beat Oklahoma in Oxford 26-14. Oklahoma, which hasn't been very good, a lot of quarterback issues with the Sooners this year. So, guys, this day and age, and Sam Pittman said it best, like, if you win the turnover battle, it almost doesn't matter who you are in this conference. If you win the turnover battle, you can win the game. That's how it feels, and that's going to be a big point of emphasis for them. But it just feels like anybody can beat anybody. Vanderbilt almost beat Texas. I mean, I don't know if they almost beat them, but it was close. Vanderbilt scored at the end to make it a little closer, but it was a possession game basically at the end. So anybody can beat anybody in this conference is how it feels. I mean, Ole Miss, they're capable of losing at home to Kentucky, which is at the bottom of the SEC, just above Mississippi State now. And they're capable of, hanging with LSU, almost beating LSU in Baton Rouge, a team in LSU that beat Arkansas, what was that, 34-10 in Fayetteville? So who knows? This is the most who knows season ever, and a large part of it is because of the transfer portal and because of NIL. Teams are just able to stack their rosters. You may not have a team that is highly ranked as another team in terms of like the team talent composite, but you have a team that is maybe very veteran, a guy that, a bunch of savvy older players, and I feel like that's kind of what Arkansas has got in a lot of ways. So it's just the playing field, and it's good. It's good for Arkansas to have a more level playing field. That's something that I noticed, like right off the bat. It's like, okay, if Arkansas, like you may not like the situation now with NIL and the transfer portal, and I think that definitely rang true early on, like Michael Woods leaving. Why would he leave? Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks. Heart goes out to Greg Brooks, by the way. Why would they leave? They're starters here. This is a disgrace, all that, that attitude that people had. And now, you see people leaving, and it's like, okay, well, get somebody to replace Poopall or, whoever else. Poopall, by the way, leading Ole Miss in tackles right now. So the attitude has changed a lot. But I always thought, like, if Arkansas can embrace this, embrace NIL, embrace the transfer portal, it can level the playing field for Arkansas. The only thing that Arkansas lacks, this is it, guys, like maybe the academic prestige or something of some schools. But the thing that they lack above anything else is direct access to elite talent. Everybody's missing something. That's a big one. Everybody's missing something, but that's what Arkansas has lacked. And with the transfer portal, players are over that. I'm going to come and stay, play for my home school and all that stuff. It's NIL and it's playing opportunities. That's what matters to kids these days. It's not so much staying home. But that used to be a big one. It used to be really big, and that's why it's so hard for Arkansas to get some four-star talents and stuff. And people would say Arkansas is this or that. There's a stigma with Arkansas or something, like there's not some stigma with the other teams in the Southeast. So like there's all these reasons, players weren't going to Arkansas. No, the reason was Arkansas doesn't have direct access to some of the talent like that a Georgia or even a South Carolina or a Tennessee has, So that's been the difference for Arkansas, and that's something the transfer portal can change. Jackson Dart is leading the SEC. He has a 180 efficiency rating, which leads the SEC. He passes for 336.9 yards per game, which also leads the SEC. We talked about Taylor Green a second ago. He is fourth in the conference in passing yards per game. But that's a pretty interesting stat to be not only leading the conference in yardage, but also in efficiency. You don't always see those things go hand in hand. Usually, like the higher volume, it's gonna come down a little bit. Same with rushing. Like rushing average usually comes down with a higher volume of carries. Henry Parrish Jr. is the leading rusher for the Rebels. He is sixth in the SEC with 82 yards per game, 5.47 yards per carry, 656 yards on the season, 10 touchdowns. Trey Harris is the leading receiver in the SEC, ahead of only Andrew Armstrong. He has 59 catches, which is first. He has 141 yards per game, which is first, 6 touchdowns. Armstrong is second in receptions with 49 and second in yards per game with 103. And second overall in total yardage, even though he's missed one game. Chris Paul Jr., as I mentioned a moment ago, leads Ole Miss in tackles with 60. Xavier Sorey Jr. for Arkansas also has 60 tackles this season. Those guys are tied at 7th in the SEC. So a lot of guys getting to the quarterback for the Rebels. Perkins is tied for first in the SEC with 8.5 sacks. Ivy is tied for fifth with 6 sacks. And Princely, I don't even know how to say it, the Florida transfer, you guys know who I'm talking about. Uman I don't know. I've seen it so many times, I don't think I've ever said it out loud. But, yeah, he has 5.5 sacks, tied for 7th in the SEC. So a lot of guys getting to the quarterback for the Rebels. This is an offense that is second in the conference by 1/10 of a point. Tennessee's first with 39.6 points per game. Ole Miss is second with 39.5 points per game. So, as we know, Lane Kiffin's team has a high-powered offense. Total offense is 538.1 yards per game, which, by the way, is first, and Arkansas is second with 482.5 yards per game. So the top two offenses in the SEC in terms of yardage produced going at it on Saturday. Arkansas fifth with 33.3 points per game, by the way. Passing offense, as you might expect, Ole Miss leads with 354 yards per game. They have 184.1 rushing yards per game, which ranks fourth in the SEC. And total defense, they are third in the SEC, so not just offense. They've given up 294.4 yards per game and 11 points per game, which is one in the SEC. Just 11 points a game given up by Ole Miss. They are 10th in passing defense, 217.8 yards per game, and they are first in rushing defense, 76.6 yards per game. Okay. Feel like we've run through that pretty good. Just an overall preview. Again, that game is at 11 o'clock in Fayetteville, so it'll be a late arriving crowd, but it'll be a good crowd for this game coming off the Mississippi State win. I posted during the game, I was like, this might get out of hand. I was just looking at the line of scrimmage I didn't expect Arkansas to give up as many yardage as they did, but in the first quarter, I posted this might get out of hand, and people were like, no, don't post that. So I deleted it, but I get the jinx. All right, let's go to Connor. Connor going to help us, kind of go over this a little bit with this game coming up, and then of course I want to really ask Connor more than anything about what his thoughts are on the basketball game. For those of you who don't follow Connor, you can follow him at Connor Goodson. He's the HawgSports hoops analyst and does a great job covering all aspects of Razorback basketball, in addition to just about everything else that we do at HawgSports, including a lot of football coverage. Connor, how's it going?
What's up, Trey? It's a pretty exciting weekend for Hog fans, I'd say.
Yeah.
A little positive for both the top sports, basketball, football, picking up some big wins.
Yeah, that basketball game is really, really exciting. I've talked about it a little bit on the Walk and Talk, but just want to get your overall impressions. We know Kansas was down a couple of key guys and stuff, but still really, really good. Really, I thought it was a very impressive performance for the first time out for the Hogs.
Yeah, if we're being honest, I did not expect to see that. Honestly, I expected things to be a little bit flopped with Arkansas maybe, showing some fight out of the gates, and then Kansas maybe it's a little bit of momentum and just kind of rides the wave to a little bit of a, built up a little bit of a cushion there at the end. But no, what we saw from this Arkansas team, I think, is going to get a lot of people excited. And I think they really blew any expectation I had, and I think a lot of other people had out of the water. Like you said, the environment was great. It was a really strong showing. I know that there was some empty seats up in the top of the student section, but overall, I think that the event was a success, and it did its job in accomplishing what it needed to accomplish for Calipari's debut.
Yeah, I put it at I think I said 17,700. The capacity is 19,200. Actually, that's not the capacity, Connor. There's no way the capacity. They've changed so many things. I want them. I'm going off track a little bit, but I want somebody just get an intern and go count every seat in Razorback Stadium, first of all, and then count every seat in Bud Walton Arena. I mean, it can't take that long to count 76,000 seats, right? But Arkansas is the only school in the SEC that has a round number, 76,000. That's the capacity. I know it's not 76,000, and Bud Walton Arena has been 19,200 since it was built. Since then, they've moved press row over to behind the band, over by the students area. That's media seating. They added they had a row of courtside seats, and then a few years later they added a second row behind them of courtside seats. It can't be 19,200. It's got to be something else. I don't know. A lot of people are saying, Trey, who gives a crap? That's ridiculous to argue about that. It bothers me from an OCD standpoint. I know there's others out there listening who agree with me.
Yeah, there's got to be. I mean, make it a little freshman thing where you get a bunch of the incoming freshmen, just send them out to.
I'm going to send Tyler Glasscock. I'm going to send Tyler Glasscock out there and have him, and we're going to start using that as the official number.
I'd be for it as long as it's Tyler, not me. I'm good.
Right. So obviously an impressive performance, and Arkansas wasn't with everybody either. I mean, they didn't have their full arsenal either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jonas Adu. Honestly, if Adu and Dickinson played, that would have probably been my key matchup to watch, and one of the more exciting matchups to watch all game. I thought that Arkansas, considering Adu, being out, he obviously hasn't practiced for a while. He saw a little bit of action in the tip-off tour event, but was mostly limited to just the conditioning stuff. And he's going to be a big piece. But I think watching what we saw on Friday night with how they played defensively, I didn't get back till late, and then something came up yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to watch the game until late last night. And then I went back and I watched it again this morning. And man, the defensive side of the ball, like you can say whatever you want about the teams. They ran their base stuff. They didn't really, run sets. It wasn't really complex. And, the game obviously doesn't count. But man, what we saw from the buy-in, the energy, the effort from everyone on the defensive end for Arkansas, I think that will play throughout the season. It doesn't matter what venue you're at. It doesn't matter if, what the situation is or who the opponent is. You play that kind of defense, you get that kind of effort from guys like Boogie Flan, who I didn't really even know had that kind of game defensively. I knew he was all right, and he had hustle and all those things, but you hadn't really seen that side of him where he's just hounding ball handlers and really, the guys were communicating really well. I thought, John L. Davis, it just if you watch John L. Davis when he gets on the floor, he does not stop talking on defense. He is just directing traffic, getting after guys. Trevor Brazil was a little late on a rotation. Carter Knox missed a rotation and gave up an open three. And John L. Davis is just getting into it. And it's that's the kind of stuff that you think, when you think of special teams over the years that have won championships, that kind of defense is in those teams' DNA. So yeah. I think that that's a great starting spot, and that you hope that this team can build on that and get better as the year goes on.
Hope so. I mean, they did beat Purdue last year in exhibition. Yeah. I felt like there was more people at that Purdue exhibition last year than there was at the Kansas one for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it was the day, a Friday night or something. I don't know.
I also think that some of the uncertainty of what to expect hurt them a little bit. Yeah. There was all this back and forth well, maybe it's not going to be an actual game.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We're doing, people were maybe, there was questions about, maybe the coaches are going to be able to stop it and do situational stuff where they mess with the score and do that. Yeah. So maybe that hurt a little bit where people were like, well, this isn't going to count and it's going to be like a practice. That I think that kind of hurt it.
And Friday night at 8:00 definitely is going to have an impact. But, the Purdue one was Saturday in the middle of the afternoon. It was like 3:00. So
right.
quite a bit different time. Yeah.
And it's the last weekend before Halloween, so there's probably a lot of parties and stuff that people or events that people are going to. So I think that those kind of variables really went against them. But I thought it was still a special environment. And man, I don't want to really get off on a tangent again, but going back to the environment, the wristbands that they had, the game presentation. That's what I think that Arkansas is kind of missed over the years a little bit, especially with football. Just the in-stadium presentation is lacking a lot. And it's simple things like that. I mean, I don't know how simple it is to set up those wristbands and all that, but just simple stuff like that adds another dimension to the environment. I thought it was really cool. And, just the presentation overall was next level.
You're going to miss Halloween because you're going to Fort Worth. You staying in Fort Worth? You staying in Dallas?
Staying in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
a little bit closer to the arena.
If you talk to people from Fort Worth and you say, you're from DFW area, they'll be like, "No, I'm from Fort Worth. I'm not from Dallas." They take offense to being looped in with Dallas. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, I have family that lives in McKinney, and I have some family that lives in Frisco. It's kind of the same way with those even smaller suburbs where they're like, "No, I'm not from Dallas. I'm from outside of Dallas in McKinney, or I'm outside. I'm from Frisco."
Dallas or something.
Yeah, it's it's not bad to say that. I say I'm from from Little Rock, and I grew up in Benton, which But
so I've got some bad news for everybody. Obviously, this game is not being televised, which is ridiculous, but it's not. So. You'll be there. You'll be able to give us some updates and stuff as what's going on with the game against TCU. It's at 7:00 on Friday. Have you looked into this a little bit with the TCU roster? Looked at this matchup?
Yeah, so I've looked a little bit just to kind of give me a feel of what guys to expect. Apparently they had a secret scrimmage against Texas recently, and Texas really put it on them. 80-52 was the final score in that secret scrimmage, and apparently former Arkansas guard Tremont Mark really went off for the Longhorns and really put it on TCU. I couldn't find exactly what his stat line is, but I saw a lot of positive intel on Mark's performance in that game. But with TCU, it's kind of they're not really rebuilding so much, but they came off a disappointing year where they were a 9th seed in the NCAA tournament and they were in that 8-9 matchup against Utah State and kind of overlooked them, looking ahead to play Purdue in the next round and got knocked off, and fans were a little disappointed. But they got a decent transfer class, a couple names that Arkansas fans might remember. Vashawn Alette, the Old Dominion transfer who came in and torched Arkansas last year when he put up an insane stat line against the Hogs when Musselman's squad was in Bud Walton last year, and he was a name that we kind of said to watch in the transfer portal possibly earlier in that cycle. Trezarian White, who was a guy that was on actually Calipari staff's radar. There was some mutual interest. He's a 6'7" wing. He was at UNC. I think it was. Is it Wilmington? Yeah, UNC Wilmington was his school. Yeah, he committed to them, and after a little bit of interest from like Arkansas, Mississippi State, Texas Tech. So he's down there, and then they've got Uday's their big man who was a McDonald's All-American, and he's kind of their veteran presence down low. Which I think if you get Adu back, I mean that'll be a nice test to see how Arkansas kind of stacks up on the interior against a really dominant post presence. And but I think that if Arkansas's guards played the way that they did defensively against TCU, I think it could get a little out of hand. But who's to say? Still early in the season for both of these teams. Obviously, you're not really expecting Boogie Flan to go out every night and put up 22 points and have 6 steals. I mean, he's a freshman. There's going to be some ups and downs.
I'm expecting that. Well, those are my expectations.
I mean, it'll shock you how many people will do that. Like, I think back to the Nick Smith and Anthony Black and Jordan Walsh, and how many fans were just like living every possession almost, where it was just like, how are these guys McDonald's All-Americans? They got all those burger boys, and they're going out there, combining for like 20% from the floor, and just living and dying by every shot almost, just by those guys. And it's like, these guys are freshmen. I mean, Boogie Flan's less than 6 months removed from playing high school basketball, so it's like, he's still figuring it out a little bit. It's a great starting point, though. I think with Arkansas fans, I use Smith, Black, and Walsh as like an example, how much better they were from that first exhibition in Texas to, later in the season. I think that if you use that to kind of gauge the amount of improvement that is possible for a big time freshman recruit like Boogie Flynn, like Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, starting out with that performance last night from Flan, the sky's the limit almost.
Yeah. Connor Goodson joining us again. You can follow at Connor Goodson on X, and you need to. Connor's a great follow, and especially with basketball season heating up. We've got the season opener against Lipscomb in Bud Walton Arena at 7 o'clock on November 6th. It's 9 days away. And then you're going to miss the Baylor game because you told your brother, he said he's getting married. My sister got married 20 years ago during the Tennessee game. The Tennessee football game that went into 6 overtimes. And you told your brother to, if he could schedule the wedding on a bye week, that would be great. Isn't that right? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
And then they scheduled the Baylor game during the bye week.
Yeah. So it was like, we had the football schedule. We didn't have the basketball schedule. So I was like, just please pick one of the football bye weeks, because they have 2 this year. So it's like, if y'all could pick one of those, that would work out perfect.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to pick November 9th. And then turns out, Calipari gets hired, and they just happen to have one of their biggest games of the season on that night. So I told Cameron that I must really like him to be able to to not watch that.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to make
able to get to see the end of it. I think, just with timing stuff. But it's we'll see. I'll definitely be.
Have they considered a morning wedding? Have they considered holding it in the morning, first thing?
I've been kind of feeling them out and being like, hey, can we move this up? Like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, would that be a big deal?
I'm sure it's up to him. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when it's it's not weddings that will like torpedo your college football Saturday, and this is a bye week. This is a basketball Saturday for Arkansas. But when it's after the weddings, it becomes kids' birthday parties that destroy your that you're not your own kids.
Me and Kayla aren't quite there yet, but it's. I don't think I'll be able to avoid it too much longer.
It's coming after the wave of weddings. I mean, when I was 30 in my late 20s, stuff just seemed like every weekend I had a wedding to go to, and then everybody starts having kids. So,
and it feels like you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is the last wedding, and then it's just like one pops up, continuously. It's like, okay, this should be the last one, and then something happens and you're getting drugged to another one later.
I can't remember the last wedding I went to. Oh yeah, I do. It was I remember now. It was yeah, I remember. I'm not going to say I'm on air, but because people know who they are. But anyway, yeah, it was a year ago, I guess. So, or maybe I don't know. Anyway,
I'm sure our fans really love our takes on weddings right now.
Right. Well, everybody can relate to that. Everybody can relate to that. I'm sure we got some comments. But anything else?
By the way, I did run into somebody this weekend who's a longtime listener and follower. So shout out to Blake if he's listening. But I ran into him, and he and a couple other people are looking very forward to us eventually doing a 3-point contest. And that was all that he could ask. And, how that he put the line at
I thought about
neither one of us breaking 50 and that kind of stuff. And
50? All right. Yeah. So let's hear in the comments what the odds are. So the rule is the goal is to make 60 3-pointers in 5 minutes. Okay. And that's somebody kicking the ball out to you, right? Like, I don't have to rebound myself, right? I don't know if I can get 60 shots up if I don't do that. But having somebody kick out, is it one ball or is it numerous balls? How many balls?
They had like two rotating.
Okay. So we need 2 balls, and we're going to see if any of us can knock down 60. I want to hear what the over under is on number of shots that people think that Connor or I could make. And we'll do from high school 3-point line. Sound good?
Yeah, that fits. I mean, that's kind of about where they were shooting from in Pine Bluff. So
okay,
a little bit further back. But, yeah, that's probably my range. That's where I was. Like I said before, I'm not athletic. I don't have a deep bag, but you could spot me up in the corner, and I felt pretty confident I could knock down a shot, given the space. But, yeah, it's I think it'll be fun. I think that people really underestimate what we can do.
We'll take the although we've never played basketball with each other or seen each other shoot. But we'll take the results to Calipari if they're good.
Oh, it's something else that I almost forgot. My dad shared with me after he listened to our last episode when we came up with this idea. He shared with me something that I forgot. I forgot that one year in like high school or junior high, we went to Dolly World as a family, and or Dollywood, sorry, not Dolly World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we went there, and you know how they have those like shooting competitions where you can wear the knockoff jersey, win the knockoff jerseys and stuff. Well, I forgot about this, but I apparently won one of those contests at Dollywood for shooting, beat out like 3 other guys in the shooting competition from 3-point on those rigged goals. So
yeah,
that's a little feather in my cap, I guess.
I bet we're getting comments on talking about our shooting abilities and Halloween and what else did we go off on a minute ago?
Weddings.
Yeah. I'm sure people are loving this segment, but
you never know what you're going to get. You never know. I mean,
right.
It's
all right, Connor. Well, we'll see you up here. Well, we're not going to see you Saturday. You'll be in Dallas, so you'll miss your first Razorback football game as a HawgSports employee. So, but we'll see you for Louisiana Tech.
I'll try to make up for it with some exciting content around the exhibition games, and especially since there's no TV scheduled for that. So everyone go follow us over at HawgSports. Subscribe. I'll have some VIP content around it, and I think $1 for your first month, right? Did I get that right?
$1 for your first month right now. Yep. And if you like it and you stick around, you get Paramount Plus for free. Heck of a deal.
So don't hesitate, folks.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. Talk to you later.
All right, see you, Trey.
All right, everybody. I'll tell you another thing, guys. Like, you should also subscribe to our friends at Ozarks Go. If you haven't subscribed to Ozarks Go, you can reach out to them at 479-684-4900. You can talk to a local person. So if you're looking for internet, you're disappointed with your current internet, you're moving or whatever, give these guys a shot. My full endorsement with them. You can go to ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG, find out if they're available in your area. Northwest Arkansas, Oklahoma, expanding out in parts of Rogers, everywhere, north of the tunnel. And when you ask them about stuff like that, if you're available in my area, they're going to know, because, again, you're not going to get shipped off to some call center. You're going to talk to somebody local. You guys know my experience. I've never unplugged and replugged my router back in. I'll let you know when I do. I'm sure it's coming at some point. Surely, over the last 3.5 years, it's going to come to where I'm going to have to unplug my router and plug it back in again because it doesn't work. But so far, it hadn't, and that's a pretty good run of consistent, steady internet service. ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG, and they're not going to jack your rates up year 1 to year 2. The last service I had was like jacking me up every year, like $5 or $10 or something, and not even saying anything. And I just get my bills like, it's more. And the next thing I know, like, I'm paying, a few years later, I'm paying $20 more than I was paying before. So when I called to cancel it and tell them I was moving, they were like, well, we'll drop you back down to your normal rate. Well, why didn't you do that before? Ozarks Go, you're not going to pay more year 2 than you did year 1. All right. Where do we want to go? We want to check out some of your questions. Have we covered everything that I want to cover? I think we have. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do this 3-point shooting with Connor, because he's not coming up here this weekend. It might be, and then you got the bye week. You got Texas, so I guess Texas. We'll try to schedule it then. Why do I have music playing? Where is that coming from? Oh, there it is. Oops. All right. Let's see what we got in the chat. Comments. Well, NEMA, that's very graphic, but they are a sponsor for the show. I can't even say what NEMA just wrote. So vulgar. Ryan Sadler says, as an LSU fan, beat Ole Miss, ass. Ken McElroy says, Trey, it was funny when you were on the field and some guy yelled Ozarks Go. I know, that was great. Classic. That was so much fun. I didn't realize that walk and talk after the Tennessee game was as good as it was. I just felt like I was just kind of like, all right, people are going to be annoyed with this, but everybody thought it was great. So Acme Break should sponsor the 3-point contest, says Nobu. You're funny, Nobu. Ozarks Go should sponsor it. Yeah, maybe so. Do it at the Art Court, convention access, post-match libations. Connor over-under is 9.5. 9.5 made 3-pointers in 5 minutes for Connor. Fishman says he'd be lucky to make one. Trey, how current are you with your playing skills recently? I've not been shooting lately, but I'm going to go. I'll get it back going. I'm not saying I'm going to make 60, but I'm not going to make 14.5. 3U special. It's not going to be 14.5. It's going to be like, I would be surprised if I made fewer than 30. I think that's an interesting way for and we did see, why am I spacing? Visage. We did see him shoot what he shot, like 4 3-pointers in the game. And Cal said, the reason we're talking about this, for those who don't know, so it was either Pine Bluff or Hot Springs when they're doing the tip-off tour deal. Cal had them shoot started the clock at 5 minutes and had them shoot. And the rule was, if you can make 63s in 5 minutes, then you're allowed to shoot threes in the game. And Visich made, I think, 40. And so Cal was like, should we let him shoot threes? And he was like, no, you don't get to shoot threes in games. But obviously he's joking around. 43s in 5 minutes, I think, is pretty good. I wasn't there. Connor was there, but apparently they're just, dishing them pretty consistently. So Who schedules weddings during football season? Yeah. Well, I did not, but I know somebody. Danny West. I think Danny's just had his anniversary, actually. Friend's daughter got married last year, the same day as the Auburn football game. In hindsight, I was grateful. Yeah, maybe so. Kim says, I got to meet Boogie, and he was such a polite and positive guy. I really like the guy. I like this team a lot. I mean, it seemed like good kids, but yeah. So 19,368 is what Google has for Bud Walton. Let's see. Bud Walton Arena capacity. So I just Googled it. It says 19,200. I have seen 19,368. This is according to Arkansas Tourism. Arkansas Tourism has them at 19,368. This just the thing that just came up randomly. Bud Walton Arena on the official site. It lists attendance records. I don't see where it lists the actual capacity here. But the attendance record is 20,320, January 26, 1997. Now, that's a number that won't be broken because now they just counts tickets scanned. Okay, so this says on Wikipedia, it says 19,200 from 93 to 2009, and now it says 19,368 from 2009 to present. That's Wikipedia, which you can't necessarily trust. So what is the number? I haven't seen it listed from the University of Arkansas as anything but 19,200. If this says 19,200, it has changed with Nolan Richardson Drive. That used to be Leroy Pond, but it is now Nolan Richardson Drive. And they moved Leroy Pond somewhere else. Okay. Here's a question. How many people can fit in Bud Walton? This it says 19,368. But it's changed again. I mean, obviously they've added a whole second row of seating since 2009, since they moved the media. I don't know if that was 2009 when they moved the media. It would have been around there because it was Jeff Long moved. Jeff Long moved us off. We used to have, man, it was nice. And I don't complain about free seats too much unless it's Auburn, right? But, man, they had us right courtside for years and years. It was fantastic. Like I sat like just off center court on the floor in a free seat. I can understand why they charge for those now. And they've moved us up, which is fine. I mean, they moved us up to the corner. We still got a good view. For actually, in 2009, okay, so this is why it's not accurate also, because 2009, they moved us. Jeff Long, this is Jeff Long, moved us behind, like where the students are now, like part of the students, behind the goal, behind the second half goal for when, the goal they shoot on for the second half. They moved us over there, which was a terrible seat because you couldn't see what was going on the other side of the court trying to cover the team. That was a bad seat. And then they moved us up in the corner, which is much better because we got an angle and a view. So it's changed since 2009 in that sense, and also, the extra row of seats there. So we need an accurate count. But 19,368 sounds better than 19,200, which was the original. Okay. We've gone 50 minutes. That's a good amount of time. Well, I appreciate everybody for hopping on. We'll have the game week show on Thursday. Probably be bringing on David over from the Ole Miss site. I haven't reached out to him, but David Johnson usually comes on from the Ole Miss site and helps us break down the Rebels. So we should have him on Thursday. We'll have Danny West on Thursday also to talk a little bit about recruiting, what prospects are going to be in town. Again, it's 11 o'clock game, so that does hurt a little bit, especially with, recruits far reaching in Texas and stuff, because, you might have an away game and, get home after midnight, and then you're supposed to get up in the middle of the night and drive to Fayetteville for an 11 o'clock game. That just makes it difficult. But Arkansas was lucky; they got 2 late night games back to back, and it was really good opponents, a really good draw. So, but should be a great crowd, even for an 11 o'clock game against Ole Miss. All right, everybody, that's it. Connor Wilkinson apologizing for the sidetrackedness of this show. You never know what you're going to get. All right. Appreciate Connor for hopping on. Appreciate all of you guys for your questions and the interaction. And, of course, all of our subscribers at HawgSports.com. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on Thursday for the primer, and go to Hawg Sports for all the latest news. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.